We tend to think of Roman roads as part of a well-ordered system, with a prescriptive and centralized motivation to their layout. It may surprise you to learn that the way in which Roman roads are laid out in Britain has regional differences. In this video, I'll describe 8 different types of Roman road layout found in regions of Roman Britain. These regional differences may be explained in terms of different needs, different tribal populations, or different time periods. The understanding of tribal boundaries in Britain is far from exact, so any discussions of how these layout types relate to different tribes should be taken with a pinch of salt. The assumption in any variation is that the Roman planners had a choice where to place their roads and settlements. The first type, named topographic constraint, is where they don't have much of a choice in the matter, such as here in central Wales. Unlike the lowlands of Britain, the road network in upland zones were constrained by the hills, with routes often heading along valleys or where upland zones are relatively uniform in height along a long distance. The idea that Romans built straight roads ignoring steep slopes is just not true. These upland regions, because they were harder for the Romans to attack and easier for the local Iron Age tribes to defend, also had Roman period settlement that was more military than civilian in nature, or at least started out that way. Cornwall and Wales are the obvious areas where this type of road layout is predominant. Many of the forts in this area have no easy access to water, and these are shown as black dots. This is in contrast to areas in the lowlands where settlements was primarily placed on river crossings. In Cornwall we have a tribe known as the Dumnoni. In Wales we have the Silures, Demetai, Ordowices and Deciangli. The central spine of Britain, represented by the Pennine Hills, also displays the characteristics of this type of constrained road layout, in contrast to the surrounding area of military push. More on that road layout type later. The second layout type is in direct contrast to topographical constraint. Generic lowlands is where the road system is mostly, though not exclusively, based around inland roads radiating from central towns, which are placed on river crossings, with roadside settlements along these roads, also mostly placed on river crossings. The settlements tend to be more civilian in origin, representing a more peaceful transition to Roman rule. The generic lowlands type covers an area of west central England and contains tribes such as the Dobuni and Cornovi. There is actually a fair amount of variation in the layout here, but there are no further concrete themes that can be pinned down, unlike with the other lowland types we're going to look at now. The next layout type is the rural matrix. Similar to generic lowlands, we are looking at a civilian area of occupation. The difference is in the layouts of the roads and settlements. As well as the central towns, the minor settlements have a greater level of importance in this area. Instead of being placed on the roads between the towns, they are spread out in a closely spaced network of rural settlements with multiple connections to other surrounding settlements, giving greater access to the countryside through a denser matrix of roads and settlements. The placements of these minor settlements on rivers is still important here. This area covers east central England, involving tribes such as the Iceni, Catualauni and Trinowentes. As Camulodunum at modern Colchester was originally the Roman capital of Britain before Londinium, this layout may have been one of the earlier forms of road making in Britain, especially as there was early trade of Dressel 1B amphorae into Iron Age Britain in this area. Parallel access is the next form of layout. Similar to generic lowlands as a starting point, this layout adds parallel access roads across internal spaces in this area, with roadside settlements or capitals as starting points for these access roads. Similar to the rural matrix, the outcome is greater access to the land within the area, but this is achieved in a different way. This layout type appears in southeast Britain, one of the first areas conquered by the Romans. The regni were pro-Roman, so the area is civilian in nature. There are 3 separate blocks of parallel access in this area. At A, the Barkham to London Road and the Hassocks to London Road lead from roadside settlements in the south to around the area of London in the north. To the east, the road south of Rochester is broadly on the same alignment, so may be part of this pattern. At B, the Roehook branch road is in part parallel to the main road between Chichester and Silchester. At C, the minor roads from Barton and Dorchester have a similar alignment to the road from Silchester to St Albans. The next area is the Hillfort zone. In this area of central southern Britain, the position of the central hub points from which the roads radiate are very much influenced by previous Iron Age settlement rather than river crossing, whether Oppida at Silchester and Chichester, riverside settlement at Winchester, as well as large hill forts such as Old Sarum, Whitsbury and Badbury. There is less roadside settlement than in other areas, and while there is some military presence, especially to the west, there is not a huge amount, suggesting that the existing Iron Age Oppida were quickly converted to civilian settlements rather than being attacked in a large-scale military operation. Chichester, especially under the regni, is known to have been sympathetic to Roman rule. As well as a much greater number of hill forts in this area of the country, there are also a large number of Iron Age linear territorial earthworks, suggesting a society with a lot of tribal divisions, involving tribes such as the Belgae, Durotriges and Atribates. It may also be significant that this area was one of the entry points for early trade into Iron Age Britain via Hengistbury Head. A number of Dressel 1A amphorae were found here. These trade links may have influenced the settlement and road pattern in the area. Military push is the next category. This is where the Roman army pushed north through the territories of the Brigantes and the Parisii. While the attitude of the Parisii towards the Romans is unknown, the Brigantes were friendly, to begin with at least. Despite that, much of the settlement has a military rather than a civilian origin. Instead of a series of roads between towns, as with the generic lowlands, the roads here have a broad tendency to head north, often with weaving branches joining or heading off at an angle, but still in the direction of north. This may be influenced by the limited lowland space afforded by areas such as the Vale of York, sandwiched in between more difficult areas, with the curving roads being a byproduct of not having an initial destination in mind. Major settlements were still built on rivers, but often started out as military forts before they became civilian settlements as the Romans brought peace to the area. The wall zone is a type of road layout superimposed over the top of another type. Initially an area of military push, Hadrian's Wall was added with corresponding east-west access roads along the wall, along with some additional branch roads leading to the wall. The underlying style of military push is still visible underneath. Coastal access is the next layout type. As the name suggests, this is based on the coast, with roads taking a more or less direct route from other settlements to port or fort settlements on the coast. Not linked specifically to any particular tribe, this is about linking inland hub areas to the coast. This is most obvious around the east and south of Britain, which is where the Romans would have accessed Britain from the continent, but this form is also visible to the south of the River Severn, to give ferry access across the Severn estuary. So there are the 8 types of road layout in Britain. The differences between lowland types such as generic lowlands, rural matrix and parallel access may be due to changing ideas over time. The layout in other more military areas may be more affected by the local tribes and what the military is trying to achieve in those areas. Here's a final map of the different categories of road layout. The boundaries are very rough, and I'm sure there could be many arguments to adjust those boundaries in certain areas. This talk is more to highlight the concept that there can be differences in road layout within a province. The rural matrix, parallel access and hill fort zone were the first areas to be conquered in AD 43 to 47 under the governorship of Aulus Plautius, along with the generic lowlands under Ostorius Scapula in AD 47 to 52. The areas of military push to the north under the governorships of Vettius Bolanus, Petilius Cerialis and Iulius Agricola in AD 69 to 84 give us the contrasting forms of road to the north as a result of that military aggression. Wales to the west was an almost constant problem, resulting in campaigns over a long period of time. So we have the options of different governors, different surveyors, different tribes, different trading history and different terrain having an effect on different areas of the road layout. The answer is probably a bit of everything having an effect. Thank you for listening to my talk, and see you next time.